My ex-wife, 35 female, and I, 36 male, were together for 13 years, married for 7.5, and we share 2 incredible sons, now 9 and 7. Back in early 2020, our marriage took a toll due to COVID. I was an essential worker and worked long weekends while she was holed up in our home with 2 young kids. I tried hard to salvage our marriage, but she was distracted, angry, and refused to communicate or work with me. A couple of months later, she decided she was done with me and left our home. Although our marriage ended, we agreed to co-parent amicably, focusing on the kids, fair visitation, and keeping things civil for their sake. Just weeks after moving out, she was already dating someone new. It felt too quick, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, but divorce was moving along fairly quickly, so I didn't have time to think about her life. A month later, I found out she was pregnant. She claimed the baby was conceived after she left, but something about it didn't sit right with me. When our divorce was finalized 3 months later, I saw her at court, and she was visibly about to pop. The timeline was obvious. She'd been cheating on me with this guy before she even left the house. She looked miserable, and her AP was nowhere to be seen. Our children refused to even go near her because she looked so scary. She gave birth just 2 weeks after our divorce was finalized. That was 3 years ago. She and the affair partner had an on and off relationship for a while. He already had 2 kids he was a deadbeat to, and unsurprisingly, he turned out to be just as unreliable with their child. Last year, they finally split up for good. Since then, my ex has been trying to involve me more in her child's life, even though I have no intention of taking on a parental role. The past couple of months, she asked me to help with things like picking her child up from daycare when she's running late or expecting me to drive her to doctors when the kid's sick. I've refused every time, and she'd just get angry as if I'm somehow running away from my responsibility. I'm polite to her child and treat him kindly, but I've made it clear that my focus is on our sons. I'm amicable with my ex, but our interactions are strictly about co-parenting our boys. Recently, she asked me to plan our youngest child's 3rd birthday party because she pulled her back and is temporarily mobility compromised. True. My boys confirmed me the fact. She wanted to have a pool party at my parents' house and wanted me to organize it. I refused. I don't feel comfortable organizing a party for someone else's child at my parents' house when that child has nothing to do with them whatsoever. I don't see this as my responsibility at all. She has family and friends who could help her with it. When I told her this, she called me cruel, heartless, and selfish for not stepping up to help her in her time of need. She keeps insisting that I'm being unfair and punishing her child when he's done nothing wrong. I don't see it that way at all. However, she's been relentless, badgering me nonstop and calling me awful the past week. Am I an a-hole for holding my ground? I believe I've gone above and beyond to maintain an amicable co-parenting relationship for the sake of our boys, but this feels like an unreasonable ask. Some comments. Not the a-hole. You're absolutely not in the wrong here. Your responsibility is to your children, not to your ex's child from an affair that ended your marriage. You've gone above and beyond to maintain an amicable co-parenting relationship for your sons, which is admirable. Asking you to plan a party for her child is unreasonable, especially given the circumstances. She has other people in her life who can help her, and it's not your job to step in just because she's struggling. Don't let her guilt trip you into doing something you're not comfortable with. Your boundaries are valid. Everyone sucks here, except a child. While I get that you have no obligation to your ex's child, you could have approached this situation with a bit more compassion. She's clearly struggling with her injury, and while her request might be unreasonable, outright refusing without offering any kind of support or compromise makes you come across as cold. On the other hand, her behavior's inappropriate too. She shouldn't be badgering you or making you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Both of you need to take a step back and reevaluate how to communicate effectively and respectfully for the sake of all the kids involved. You're the a-hole. Your ex may have wronged you in the past, but this isn't about her. It's about a 3-year-old child who didn't ask for any of this drama. She's physically unable to throw a party for her child, and instead of stepping up to help, you're holding a grudge about her past mistakes. It's not like she asked you to be the kid's parent, just to help plan one birthday party. A little kindness wouldn't hurt, especially since your sons are likely involved with this child as their sibling. By refusing outright, you're letting your resentment cloud your judgment, and that's not fair to anyone, especially the child. Story 2. Am I an a-hole for not wanting my girlfriend to have a queer platonic partner? Sorry, I found myself in a pretty odd situation. For background context, I've been dating my girlfriend for around 2 years. For the first year or so, all was normal and our relationship was totally great. And then she went on a hormonal birth control pill. Her sex drive plummeted, and around 6 months ago, we had a talk where she confided that she was really uncomfortable doing sexual things anymore, and that she was only doing them at all because she felt like she had to for my sake. I apologized since I obviously didn't want her to feel that way, and we've been pretty much celibate since then. I told her we should only be doing sexual things if she was interested in doing them. She started seeing a counselor for that 2 months ago, and I'm hopeful that in time things will return to normal there. In addition to the above, I have felt like our relationship's been lacking in emotional intimacy for the last while. 2 nights ago, I decided to bring up how I was feeling to her and told her that at times it felt more like she's been my roommate than my girlfriend, and that I'd really appreciate if we could try to spend more time together. She was receptive, and the talk felt pretty productive. We set a date for the 2 of us this Thursday. Afterwards, though, she told me that a friend of hers asked her on Monday if she would be interested in the 2 of them being queer platonic partners, and she asked me for my permission to say yes. I asked her what that meant, since I have never heard of the term before, and she described it as a platonic relationship with a lot more of an emotional commitment. I told her honestly that from how it sounded, I wasn't comfortable with it. She told me that she might have been explaining it badly, and that she'd appreciate if I could Google the term and read up on it and then talk to her about it again. I did, and Google described it pretty much the same way she described it. We talked last night, and I tried to explain that I didn't mind if she had close, emotionally involved friendships, since that's none of my business, but that choosing to label it with a relationship word felt like it was crossing a line for me, especially since my girlfriend's bisexual. I also said that I was feeling kind of insecure in our relationship at the moment, especially because of the intimacy issues I raised the other night, and hearing from her, right after I talked to her about that she wanted to enter into a deep emotional commitment with someone who wasn't me, felt kind of disheartening. The conversation ended with her agreeing not to say yes to her friend. Am I being an asshole here? I know there's some aspect to this that's founded in my being insecure, but I'm not sure if I'm being an asshole about it or if it's reasonable to be uncomfortable with labeling a friendship that way. Not an a-hole. You're not wrong for feeling uncomfortable with this. It sounds like she's trying to emotionally cheat without calling it cheating. Labeling someone as a queer platonic partner adds a level of emotional intimacy and commitment that honestly feels like it's crossing the line in a romantic relationship, especially since she's already admitted that she's lost interest in intimacy with you. This feels like she's looking to have her emotional needs met elsewhere while still keeping you around. It's not unreasonable to want your girlfriend to prioritize working on your relationship instead of forming a deeper bond with someone else. You're not saying she can't have close friends. You're drawing the line at her choosing to define a relationship with someone else in a way that undermines yours. It's good she agreed not to move forward, but honestly, this whole situation is a red flag. If she's more focused on adding new emotional commitments than fixing the ones she already has with you, you might want to reevaluate if she's fully invested in this relationship. Now, some comments. It isn't a friend, of course. That's why she called it a queer platonic partnership. It's something different. I don't think that someone being interested in others, sexually or platonically, negates compatibility in a relationship. However, I recognize I am open-minded to non-monogamy and non-standard relationships. Maybe the girlfriend is as well, and OP is monogamous. Plenty of those interested in non-monogamy choose to commit to a person who wants a monogamous relationship. There's a lot of hostility here. If this is something your partner wants, then it might be a good idea to listen to her. You have to be comfortable with the fact that your partner may not get everything she needs from this relationship. You have to be comfortable with the fact that you may not be able to provide every emotional nuance for her. If she's able to express emotion to someone, even if it's not you, that seems to me like it might help her greatly, and I would think very carefully of standing in the way of that. It's going to take a bunch of conversations, a bunch more honesty, and a lot of trust if this is something you both want to do. Ease into it. Take it slow. However, if this is something you feel like you can't do, draw your line in the sand. Then be vocal about that too. Not an a-hole to me. It kind of sounds like she's been exploring her sexuality more and maybe coming to realize that she's a lesbian. Think about it. She doesn't feel comfortable having sex with you, and now she wants to explore being emotionally invested in another woman. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think you should keep that thought in the back of your head if she all of a sudden starts spending more time with her partner.